All right, so we have talked about team maps in the past, and a lot of the team maps that we have covered have something to do with a heavy 3-8 combination or a heavy 7-8 combination. And today we are looking at a team map that maybe doesn't happen as often, but it definitely happens. And this is a team dynamic that isn't taken from necessarily one specific team, but there have been some themes of this particular team map makeup. And so I thought, let's talk about it today. Let's talk about it. And let's talk about it and let's remember that there are all different kinds of team makeups that can be incredibly productive still, successful. It just might look a little bit different. So the team map that we're going to look at today is going to be a team that gets along really well, where everyone is kind and supportive and really collaborative. And this, I know this not just from looking at the numbers, the types on these team maps, but because of the feedback that these teams have shared. It's really interesting when we get into what do you most appreciate about your team and what are some potential challenges your team faces, how it kind of it makes sense based on the dominant types on the team map and the makeup. So this is going to be a team where everyone gets along for the most part, but the challenge is that, or can be, is that few people, if anyone, really says what they think. And so we're going to kind of look at why that is. We're going to look at types specifically. And in this one, we're going to look at what is a team map that has a heavy type 9, type 2, and type 4 dynamic. What does that look like? And unpack this combination and why it can be such a powerful, influential team and in maybe a different way than you think of powerful and influential. And then where they might be getting held back. So, with that, let's get into it. I got my notes here because I want to try and keep this short, and so I'm gonna try and stick to my script, but you know how that goes sometimes. All right. So with our team map, when we have a heavy type 9, type 2, and then we have more 4s than normal. If you've been listening to this podcast for any time at all, you have heard me say the least common types that I run into, and this is purely me, based on the clients that I have, are the type 5, 7, and 4. And so there's been a couple of teams where we've had a handful of 4s, along with some of this heavy 9-2 energy. And so, as a reminder, our type 9s are striving to feel at peace, inner peace and outer peace. They tend to be really easygoing. They make for great mediators. They're able to see all sides, can be very inclusive. They are looking for harmony. And because of that focus, that lens that they're looking at the world through, they can really bring an anxiety reducing, tension reducing energy to the team. Can be really powerful in its own way, and honestly, it can be really needed. We probably need more of this. And then our type 2, as a reminder, are striving to feel connected. As we'll always say, sometimes they're called the helper, but it's really so much deeper than that. It's a layer deeper than that. It's I help because I want to be connected. So just keeping that in mind. Our type 2s tend to be very supportive, excellent at rapport building, tend to have excellent relational skills, whereas some of the types, I'm thinking of maybe our type 1s, our type 3s, our type 5s might be a little bit more task oriented. Our type 2s are absolutely people oriented, very similar to the type 9. And they really do. They're motivated by helping other people. They feel like, hey, I shine when other people shine, when the people on my team shine. And then our type 4, striving to feel unique, significant. It's important that their work has meaning and purpose. And very much like the 2 and the 9, 4s can be incredibly empathetic. They are very attuned to their own emotions, and that can be really helpful as well in asking for what you need, and also coming from a place of empathy. I've felt that before. I've been where you've been. That sucks. That's hard. That's difficult. And they tend to be really good. I don't want to say they love it, but they tend to be really good at sitting in uncomfortable, hard feelings that we all have as humans. So 4s are great at that. They really value authenticity. I want bring your real self. I want to know who you really are. If you're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. You don't have to put on a fake smile for me. And because of those qualities, they too can be really good at connecting the team, deepening that connection within the team dynamic. So with these 3 types, a lot of similarities you're probably hearing, and based on what you already know, this really is a people first culture where there's probably a lot of warmth on the team. Everybody probably feels really welcome. There's probably a lot of inclusivity, and there's probably a lot of understanding. Where some types it's kind of black and white, my way or the highway, right or wrong, good or bad. These types tend to be able to consider the context, consider the human experience that might be leading to something. This is probably these types are probably the top 3 that would have the philosophy of understanding, at least maybe you do something, the wrong thing, but for the right reason. And so they just can be really, really understanding context. They're going to be able to look in that. Now, sounds like an awesome team. Everybody is probably getting along really well. Everybody is probably feeling welcomed and feeling valued, which is awesome. So we don't want to mess with that. Okay. We don't want to turn this team into something else. We want to push into those strengths that you have as a team and look at what might be missing, what challenges might be out there. And in this case, probably challenges that have gone unspoken because of such a priority on the making sure everybody feels okay, making sure the team is in harmony. And so this team might have some unspoken tension, maybe that they've been avoiding, maybe avoiding some feedback to a direct report, a teammate, a manager that needs to happen. And they're doing it though, not because they're necessarily afraid or don't know, or it is just because I want to maintain that emotional peace and connection. And I have a fear that if I say this hard thing or give this uncomfortable feedback, that the peace won't be there, the connection won't be there, that sense of belonging for the 4 won't be there. And so it makes sense. Again, it makes sense. So what is going to be working really well with a team like this that we want to continue to lean into is that a place like this probably has really high psychological safety, which, if you spend any time in the workplace, trends world, reading what's working, what's not. There's a lot of talk over the years about creating psychological safety. And this is going to be an environment where people do feel cared about and valued. And so they're probably going to have loyal employees, employees that have probably been there for a while, that might give a little extra on most days because they do feel so cared about and valued by their employer, by their manager, their teammates. They're probably going to have a really collaborative, supportive working environment. So when deadlines are coming up, when projects are assigned, they're going to be there to support each other, lend a helping hand. This will not be the team dynamic that is like, this is your problem. You missed the deadline. This is going to be kind of an all hands on deck. How can I help? Like we're all in this together. And then most likely this is going to be a team of really high emotional intelligence, high empathy, really understanding that people do see the world through various lenses, are having different experiences. We talk a lot about the Enneagram. That was what we do here. But there are so many other things that can play into that when race, gender, country of origin, socioeconomic status growing up, socioeconomic status present, all of these other things. What life experiences have happened to you, and our team here is going to be taking all of that in, and really understanding and having empathy. Like, oh, they said that, well, maybe not super politically correct, but it makes sense. Or they're going through this. Well, it makes sense because of this. So it's just that additional. It's just understanding. And I think that emotional intelligence is really valuable here because they're not typically going to just have blanket goals, blanket strategies, blanket coaching tactics with everybody on the team. It's like, well, this worked for one person, let's roll it out to everybody. They're probably going to have more of that coach management style where it's like, okay, this person might need to be a little you know, talk directly to, or this person might need a little softer approach. They might need the sandwich approach when we're given feedback. And so they really do try to manage and work with people where they are and have that emotional IQ to be able to do so. Now, with this, it is great when it is great. And if everything is working and this is similar to your team dynamic, well, as we always talk about, do not change a thing. But if there's something you feel like it isn't working, you're running into challenges, frustrations, you feel like something could be better, let's look at this. It's interesting because a recent team with a similar dynamic talked about all the things that they really appreciated with this team: the supportiveness, the collaborativeness, the empathy. And then they also said one of the challenges with their team was the lack of transparent communication, direct communication. And it was hard at times to move things along, because of some of the dancing around the topic. And so they had said it would be really great. And multiple people had shared similar feedback. And I thought, oh, how interesting. Well, this makes sense that a team that is made up of this dynamic would struggle in some of those areas. And so they had asked for, I would like some more honest communication, direct communication. And so it makes sense when we think about our type 9s who have a tendency to merge with other people's opinions and want to kind of go along in order to minimize the conflict. And sometimes they might say yes or nod or agree because they don't want to rock the boat. And then sometimes it's truly because I'm not sure yet. I haven't processed the information. I haven't had enough time to think this through. So I really don't have a direct answer for you. Really don't have a strong opinion. So keeping that in mind when we're working with our type 9s. Our type 2s, because they like to be liked, they might sugarcoat their feedback. They might give the sandwich method, and it might be a little it might be a little unclear what that type 2 is really trying to say, or the feedback that they're needing to give, because it's like, you're doing a great job, you might need to work on this, but overall great job. And so the person that they're talking to might leave either A, maybe a little confused, or B, thinking they're doing awesome, everything's great, they don't need to change a thing, because the feedback sandwich didn't have a lot of meat in it. It just had the bun was really big with the positives, and then they just kind of slid in that hard feedback. So they don't want to disappoint people. They want to avoid disappointing people, feeling like they hurt someone's feeling. So that makes sense why this could be a struggle. And then for our fours, they are really in touch with their own emotions, and have a tendency, though, to pull inward, to internalize those emotions, to withdraw. We've talked about this before. Our fours, our fives, our nines have a tendency to go inward when they are processing information, processing feelings. And so they might need to kind of pull in. And so that also makes sense why that feedback isn't super direct, because that four is going to bring them in, kind of withdraw, process them maybe by themselves. Now, I do know that fours, out of all these three types, do really value authenticity. And so out of all of these, and I'd be curious, fours, if you are listening and have anything you want to add, please reach out, enneagrammba.com/contact, and let me know if I'm on the right track here. But I think out of all of these, they have a tendency to appreciate that honesty and directness the most, because of their prioritizing of authenticity. And so, their spidey sense is going to go up if somebody says, "Oh, great job," but it doesn't sound authentic. It's like, no, I probably could be doing something better, but they're not telling me. So I think out of all three of these, the four might be the most comfortable with that direct, honest, transparent communication, appreciate it the most. And I think all of them appreciate it. It's just maybe doesn't come as easy. So conflict in these situations probably gets smoothed over. Maybe clarity is lost, and the feedback can become really vague. Okay, so you can start to think about, imagine what sort of issues and problems this might have. So we don't want to tell them, we'll just, that we'll just don't think about it. Just, be more direct, face conflict head on. I think if that were to work, just reminding themselves of that, saying that, I think it would have already worked by now. So we kind of have to reframe the story in our minds as these types. And in this particular episode here, we're talking about the four, the twos, and the nines. We kind of have to reframe. I can actually be more connected if I speak honestly and directly. I can actually create more peace and less tension if we just have the hard conversation now, have it, and then get through till the end, and we can go back to that harmonious state. So thinking about how you can reframe that if this feels hard to you, if you happen to resonate with a 4 or 2 or a 9, that's something that we'll talk about. And avoidance of conflict really comes from it comes from positive intention. You're not necessarily trying to frustrate anybody. You're not trying to create challenges. You're trying to do the opposite, protecting those relationships and the harmony of the team. And so we're not looking for you to become confrontational. Maybe a little bit more assertive and aggressive, like an 8. We're not saying, hey, become an 8 here. And so just be careful with yourself, and as you think about tweaks you need to make, right? So we're not looking for you to become confrontational, but reflecting on finding ways, considering things to pair. I'm about to rhyme here. To pair care with candor and directness. And for me, this is the ultimate clearest kind type of thing. It's like, gosh, if they really need to work on this so that they can get that promotion, or so that we can have a better product, or whatever it might be, it's actually kind and caring if I can, be more candid, be more direct with what I need to share. The other thing to remind yourself of, and find a version of this maybe that feels good to you, is something along the lines of clear is kind might be a mantra for you, or honesty is another form of support. Some sort of kind of version of a mantra like that, where it's, hey, I want to be direct, but I also can do it in a way that is kind and caring. So whatever that mantra is for you, or still one of those, that would be something to kind of, pump yourself up with, maybe a little post-it, that you remind yourself of when you're on those Zoom calls, or about to have head into a meeting. Just kind of think about that. Clear is kind. Honesty is another form of support, whatever your mantra is. So what are some practical steps for a team with this dynamic? One is to start with shared values. So just in a group setting, call it out and say, we are committed to honest communication because we care about each other, because we care about one another's growth, because we care about this project, because we care about this organization. We're committed to honest communication. And part two of that, I guess part B would be getting together and defining what honest communication means to your team and your organization. A lot of times people will say, I want to get better at communication. I want to improve communication. I want to have good communication. Great. That's awesome. But what does good communication look like? What, in this case, specifically, what does honest communication look like? Let's talk about, as a team, a couple of examples, because what might mean honest communication for one team isn't going to work for another team, or not be as impactful. Maybe there's some other things to focus on, examples to use. So commit to honest communication, but then make sure that you define it so everybody's on the same page with what that means. Another practical improvement that you can be thinking about, is using structured feedback rituals, meaning there are moments in the day, in the workflow, in your experience as a team member, where those opportunities for direct communication, direct feedback are just baked in. So it's not like, okay, like we're going to have a scheduled separate meeting where we're going to speak directly and honestly. It's like, no, look for specific ways that you can just bake it into what you're already doing. So one idea that I have here is starting meetings with everybody sharing one thing that's working well, and maybe one thing that has been hard or that you would like to improve. And this, it might take you a couple of meetings to really start to get people comfortable sharing the improvement part, but you have to start somewhere. You have to practice, right? Honest communication is not a switch like so many of these growth opportunities. It's not a switch that you just, I'm going to communicate honestly now. Okay. It's going to take practice. It's going to take people holding you accountable. It's also going to it's also going to entail people complimenting you, shouting it out, noticing when you are doing those things, whatever the thing is you want to grow in. And then I love this one. And it's just saying what everybody in the room is probably thinking. And that is, let's name it. Let's name the discomfort. Let's just say it out loud. And so you might encourage some type of language or disclaimer saying, this feels hard to say, but it's important. Oh, I love that. I love that as the person about to communicate the hard thing, because it's saying, "Hey, I'm about to share something with you that's a little harder for me." And so, but I want you to know it's because I care so much. And you could even say that, some version of that. And this is a specific line that we'll talk to with our type sixes who might have a lot of questions, who might have some skepticism, who might be viewed as a Debbie Downer because of that. But if they can just ask the same questions, show up maybe the same way, but just say, hey, I have some questions, and it's my intention is not to pop the excitement balloon here. It's not to be negative. It's because I care so much about you all that I'm about to ask these questions. And so that's specific to a 6, but we can do the same thing with this dynamic. This feels hard to say, but it's important. I like for the person saying it, and I also like for being on the receiving end of that, where it's a reminder like, okay, this may not be easy for what this person's about to say. So, congratulations on being courageous in this moment. And then also, okay, man, what they're about to say might hurt my feelings. Oh, it might make me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I know that they care about me, and I know that they're sharing this with me or the team because it is important. So I love that. This feels hard to say, but it's important. And then the last one is around leveraging the type strengths that are most likely already there. So, for example, our type 9, using their calm to keep the feedback safe. That open mind, that approachableness, I don't know if that's a word, being approachable, that just tends to come natural to our 9s. They can make people feel really safe when giving the feedback. So how can you find specific ways as a type 9 to lean into that strength of calm, inclusivity, consensus building, making people feel seen, feel heard? How can that directly tie to communicating and giving feedback more directly? For our type 2s who have so much empathy for their team members, they're going to be able to leverage that strength of empathy to deliver hard truths, tough truths, but do it with care. They're going to be able to do that. I think for some people, they might need a little bit more practice, but for a 2, that's probably going to come natural. Now, what gets said might be a little bit more difficult for them, but just remember as a 2, like that empathy, the tone, the care, the words that you're going to use before and after, just making sure that the meat of your message is direct, but you're going to be able to deliver it in a way that people most likely feel really cared about still. And then for our 4s who are kind of the model of authenticity, are going to be able to share hard feedback, have difficult conversations, and most likely be able to also deliver it in a way that is easier to receive, much like the 2 that we're talking about and the 9. But they might add a personal story. They might have a personal touch that they can say, this is what I'm seeing our team is struggling with. Or Sally, you're struggling with this. However, I want you to know I also struggled with this before and I still do. Or I had a time where I was doing this same thing. And so I think 4s, it comes a little bit more natural to them to be able to put themselves in those shoes, speak from a place of personal experience, which can also be a wonderful strength and strategy when you're delivering uncomfortable feedback, having uncomfortable conversations. So, if you are a 2, a 4, a 9, These are some things to think about if you are on a team with a lot of twos, fours, or nines. This, I hope, will still be helpful to you as you kind of think about where your teammates, where your manager might be coming from, and remembering the strengths, and then also, giving them room to grow and practice with this direct communication, which this is not limited to fours and twos and nines. Okay, this is just a particular team map makeup, a heavy 2-9 team dynamic that I've seen more recently. A couple times now, our sevens could probably learn from this. All types can learn from this. So I don't want you to feel called out, 2, 4s, 9s, because this is something we all can work on in some way. So as a reminder, as we kind of close, some things to reflect on, to think about, when you have a dynamic like this, you want to be very careful not to overcompensate. So I've talked about that, but just as a reminder, try not to overcompensate, because your collaboration, the kindness, the care that you have for the team is your team's superpower. So you don't want to lose that superpower. The next level comes. The next level can be unlocked when you're able to add a little bit of courage in there, mix it with that kindness, and say the things that need to be said. And so when your connection is already strong, remember that honesty, if you have that strong foundation, that honesty isn't going to break it. It's not going to break the connection. It's not going to break the team. If anything, when you have built such a caring, supportive foundation, that honesty, yeah, maybe it stings. Maybe it's hard to receive. Maybe it's hard to give. But if anything, it's going to deepen the connection that the team already has. It's going to, put some nos boost on the collaborative and kind dynamic that is already there. So if this is a team dynamic that feels similar to your workplace, please share. And then also reflect on and think about, okay, all right, yeah, this sounds like us. Yep. Think about what is one conversation, one piece of truth that your team might be having, or might be avoiding, rather, sorry, that your team might be avoiding in the name of peace and harmony and making everybody feel okay. What is that thing that needs to be said that is being avoided? And it might be feedback on a particular idea, on a particular strategy, something that somebody did, something that you disagree with. And having those conversations, again, remembering clear is kind. We already have a strong dynamic. This honesty will not break us. It will deepen our collaborativeness, our care for one another. And then what is that truth, that conversation that our team might be avoiding, because we want to keep the peace, because we want everybody to feel connected and okay. But what do we need to have? And maybe that is something you think on by yourself. Maybe it's a conversation you have with another team member. Maybe it's a conversation you have with your manager, or this could be a really great prompt to have in your next team meeting. Or maybe you email it out. Maybe you email the question out beforehand so people have time to kind of think about it, and they're bringing some more well thought out reflections to the conversation, and see what comes up, right? And see what problems you might be able to solve, progress you might be able to make, goals you might be able to hit quicker, because your pairing candor with care and that directness, but doing it in a kind way. So, some things to think about, to reflect on, maybe to share. Like I said, I think we've done two of these now with some sort of dynamic of a heavy 8-3, with some others in there, heavy 8-3-1, heavy 8-3-7. And so I really have been wanting to get this in here because it's a completely different makeup. Now, this doesn't mean that the team doesn't have any eights or three. There are absolutely eights and threes and sevens and sixes and ones on this team, which maybe was some of the feedback that we were getting around some of the frustrations from this. And so just thinking, okay, I will appreciate this as the types that we've talked about today, potentially. It might be hard, but I might appreciate it. And how much more can we be connected and be successful with the other members on our team, trying to minimize some of their frustrations that they might be really sensitive to and be super clear to them how we're avoiding these conversations. And so every team's going to be different. Every dynamic's going to be different, but hopefully you have some things to kind of ponder on, reflect on with yourself, with others. And with that, like I said, with our fours, but as always, I'll invite, if you have any real life stories, anything you wanted to underscore, anything you think I missed, always reach out. Let me know, enneagramMBA.com/contact, and let me know what I might have missed about the 2-4-9 team dynamic. With that, and as always, thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next one.